formally launch his manifesto later in the afternoon, just a day after he was cleared by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to contest in the election. The Azimio team has outlined a 10-point agenda, which they will be highlighting today. Our senior political affairs reporter, Kennedy Mureithi, is at the Nyayo National Stadium, where that event is expected to happen, and is now joining us for an in-depth look into the Azimio plans for the country if they clinch power. Mureithi, good afternoon.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Zainab, there in our Nairobi studio. And well, yes, the stage is already set for what they do believe is going to be the setup for the launch of the manifesto starting this evening. And there's so much work that is happening already here at the Nyayo National Stadium, where a makeshift dome has actually been set up, and there are different setups of chairs that have been put there. Those that are in gold, others in blue, others in red, and then there is a barrier that connects this and also the other Kenyans that have been invited. So the setup here looks like it would accommodate over 2,000 people, yet they have said that they are looking at about 3,000 people who they want to come and witness this from about 6 o'clock in the evening, where they want to give what you have called a 10-point agenda. We yet do not know what he will be saying or talking to, but we already know that Raila Odinga has been giving snippets of what his government will be looking at moving forward if he gets into power the August elections. And some of these things are like the Pesa Mfukoni, where he is suggesting about 6,000 shillings to vulnerable families so that they are able to take care of their children and move forward. Probably putting it as 6,000 shillings, it might be reviewed upwards if he has been advised so. But what we do know is that they will be giving 6,000 shillings to people. And there is also the question of Baba Care, where he has said that one of the key issues that Kenyans cannot take care of is the health matter. And I do know, also speaking from a personal point of view, where I have somebody from the States where once they were asked about the question of contributing towards somebody who was sick, they said that in the Americas, the question is whether the government is taking care of you. Do you have that social security? So we do not know whether what they are proposing is akin to what is there in the United States. But Raila Odinga has been making reference to Baba Care, even printing capes with that name, Baba Care. So it is quite a setup. But also, Zainab, another question that one would ask themselves is, what is the efficacy of this manifesto? Remember, in 2013, the Jubilee government came up with a magnificent manifesto. The same case happened in 2017, where they came up with a very magnificent manifesto. The question of whether they have achieved 100% or even 90% is a question that we would want to hear President Uhuru Kenyatta tell Kenyans as he leaves office. But according to his own assessment on Madaraka Day, the last public engagement he had with Kenyans, he said that he has achieved what he promised Kenyans. Even in billboards, he says that he made promises and he has achieved those promises. So today, in the launch of this manifesto that starts today evening, we'll be looking to see what are these issues that Raila will be very keen on. I have a document here that we see has a 10-point agenda, and point number 1 is Inua Jamii Pesa Mfukoni, and that is where he's speaking about the 6,000 shillings that is going to be given to the vulnerable families. Then there is the Baba Care. Baba Care, and according to him, is each of us has experienced the all-consuming strain that accompanies the ill health of a family member. And this, he speaks about the contributions that probably you in your family have been asked to contribute to somebody, either to go outside the country or even here in the country to cater for that. Then there is the Kazi Kwa Wote, and this is about securing the welfare of Kenyans. Remember, a bigger percentage of Kenyans were even affected by the coronavirus that took about 2 years before Kenyans and the government asked us to relax some of these restrictions. But according to that, then he is saying that they will be looking at avenues of generating productivity through job creations and investing in the Jua Kali. Raila Odinga actually even going as far in some of the rallies that he has been attending that he will will be recognizing the education that one has gotten to. You don't have to go to the university for you to get a degree, yet he will be giving something, a recognition where the kind of education that you have received is going to help you get you're going to get recognition for it. Then there is uchumi kwa kina mama, and this says that he's going to focus on the true multipliers of wealth in our community, and that is the women. Remember, every government project these days is being designed to see how it is going to focus on men and women. So there are those agendas. Then there is the one where he has been talking about then there is that inawezekana, where he says that there is nothing in his government that is not going to be possible. So we are set up here. This is the setup and everything, and we'll be here as NTV to give you a detailed coverage of that manifesto launch. But right now, I want to take you to Marsabit, where we do understand that the Minister for Interior, the CS for Interior, Matiang'i, is speaking on the security situation in that part of the country. We are here. We are not leaving.
Us here, the chiefs, assistant chiefs, and the others. So we have gotten very useful feedback on how the operation is going on. So far, over 200 guns have been collected and over 3,000 bullets have been recovered from this operation. We are hoping that more work in the second month of this operation, because we extended the curfew by another 30 days, more work will be done so that we can recover more guns, because we believe from intelligence and the information we have that there are more guns than the ones that we have collected. And the message we have been passing around to leaders and everyone since morning is that we need to recover more guns. We will review this operation when we have around 3,000 or so guns, because we believe there are still many more guns in wrong hands. We have intensified the operation, and now we are moving to other sections of the county in addition to Marsabit Central and the town. I am very optimistic that we will continue at this pace. We will get all the guns we need, and most importantly, we will keep this place peaceful. The response we have from the local leaders, the community leaders here, and ordinary members of the public, we took time to walk around the shops, to talk to the shopkeepers and the traders in town. They are happy and satisfied with this operation. They have not raised any complaints about the operation. What they are asking is whether or not we can review the hours of the operation to allow for traders to hang on a bit in their businesses. But that in itself is a positive sign, because they are now beginning to think about operating businesses longer hours, which is something they have not been thinking about until the operation. But I have promised that we will review the operation in another 3 to 4 weeks, and subject to the performance at that time, we will see whether we can review the operation by 1 hour or 2 hours to address the issue of the traders in town who want an additional 1 hour of business, and because they are happy with the operation and they are happy that it is working. So we will stay on this assignment until this place remains peaceful. We have made assurances that we will not end the operation until after the general elections, because we want this place to be peaceful during the campaigns, during the elections, and even after the general elections. That is what Wananchi want to happen, and we will keep that in place. Once again, I want to thank our police officers and the team that has done the work they have done here. Inspector General and his team, my friend Batha and the Special DC was posted here through the decision of the National Security Council. That method has actually worked. That proposal has worked. The place is much more peaceful than it has been. We are going to carry out a raft of other measures to ensure that Marsabit remains peaceful, because what we are doing now, we don't want temporary peace. We want sustainable and long-term peace, so that this place can realize its economic potential and people can go on to do what they need to do. And then the truth of the matter also is that this conflict and these challenges here have nothing to do with the ordinary Wananchi per se. A bit of it is politically motivated. A bit of it is a challenge caused by the proximity to the border, and some of the things that we have allowed to happen over a long period of time. So we will adopt an all of the above approach. We are going to do intensified screening of peoples and individuals who move around where they are doing business or whatever they are doing, to ensure that we don't have, aliens and wrong people around here. We will continue to have a communal engagement with members of the public. We are going to intensify our workings with the Interfaith Council to ensure that community leaders are involved in the decisions that we make. But most importantly, we have this morning taken a decision to do 100% review of the administrative infrastructure in Marsabit, because there are very fundamental weaknesses here. I mean, I am not going to lie to the public. The challenges we have with the deployment we have here of chiefs, assistant chiefs, and so on, is such that unless we address it, we will not solve the problems we have. The way that some of the chiefs, assistant chiefs may have been recruited in the past was outside because of political pressure and sometimes too much attention to irrelevant things like clan affiliation and so on and so forth. And in the process, many of the administrators, actually, you can tell from the way they are working, have got their loyalties elsewhere, not in providing peace and security to the local people. And that's why some of them are not as forthcoming when it comes to giving information and cooperating with the security agencies who are here. We have too many security teams in Marsabit to have even a single security incident. When you look at overall deployment of security resources per capita, this is probably one of the counties that is most manned by security teams. We have more boots on the ground here in Marsabit than we do in over 80% of the counties in the country. So why should we have a problem? It could be a challenge in terms of reorganizing our administrative infrastructure so that it's much more cohesive, it works better in a multi-agency manner, cooperates with the others better. We have, because we are closer to a border, we have KDF deployment that is looking at the border. But we also have very strong presence of police, the special teams of the police on the ground. So we are reviewing all this and answering that question, because that is what the National Security Council asked us to do. They're asking us, how is it that with the numbers that we have on the ground and with the people who are posted here, we can have such security problems? And we have identified the problems. Sometimes poor coordination among us, our security teams, infiltration and interference sometimes by politics, and so on. So we will review all this, and we will come back again after 1 month now to institute a proper system. We are going to retrain our administrators here, our local administrators, our assistant chiefs and chiefs in Marsabit. All of them have to be retrained.
Well, there you have it. Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i there in Marsabit assessing the security situation. They'll be getting more details on that later. But still on politics, well, like I said, it's just about 64 days to the polls. And here in Nairobi, Safina Party presidential flag bearer Azimio Wanjigi will apparently not be on the ballot on the 9th of August. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission noted that he had not submitted the requisite signatures and is also been disqualified over lack of a university degree certificate. NTV's Sydney Chazima is at the Bomas of Kenya, where the clearance of presidential aspirants exercise is on its final day. Sydney, good afternoon. We saw the Safina Party presidential flag bearer in a heated address to IBC about an hour ago over his dissatisfaction over that decision by the electoral body. Just give us an idea of exactly what transpired.
Oh, pleasure, Zain. It's been quite a dramatic day here at Bomas of Kenya in this hall where the panel of IEBC has been clearing candidates for presidency. We've just seen Azimio Wanjigi and his running mate Willis Ocheng who've come in, and he has been rejected on grounds that he had not submitted the requisite signatures. Remember, out of all that he submitted, only 23 from 23 counties passed the mark by IEBC. And on to some contentious issue, it's about his degree. IEBC has claimed that Wanjigi is yet to graduate, stating that he is slated to graduate in December, and he had only submitted transcripts. And so IEBC requested for a degree. But on his defense, Azimio Wanjigi and his running mate have stated and claimed that the IEBC has set a precedence by clearing a candidate on the same grounds that he has been denied. And we've seen that he caused a little bit of drama, and his mic had to be switched off with the IEBC officials urging him to go out and address his supporters. And when we went outside, he stated that he will be heading to the tribunal to present his case, and also if that doesn't work, he'll be going to court, assuring his supporters that he'll be on the ballot come August 9th. We are still following on the proceedings here, and in the afternoon we are expecting Muthiora Kariara, who is an independent aspirant, who will be facing the IEBC to be cleared. And also Njeru Gathangu will be coming in later on. So we'll be keeping tabs on those events, and so far this process has been going on since the 29th of May, and about 5 candidates have been cleared. That is William Ruto and Raila Odinga. We have George Wajakoya, we have Walter Mongare, we have David Mwaure of Agano Party, who have already been cleared and they are now officially presidential candidates. So we'll be keeping tabs on the events unfolding here, and we shall be briefing you in our subsequent bulletins. Back to you, Zainab.
All right, thanks, Sydney Chazima there, monitoring the situation at the Bomas of Kenya. But of course, also remember today, the Azimio One Kenya presidential candidate, Raila Odinga, will be unveiling his manifesto later in the afternoon at the Nyayo National Stadium. We have our NTV's political affairs reporter, Kennedy Mureithi, also keeping tabs with the situation there. And we will be dwelling more on the issue of manifesto. In fact, in studio, I will be joined by, on my immediate left, of course, is Professor Fred Ogola, a political strategist and academic director, the Institute of Strategy and Competitiveness, among many other hats, as well as James Shikwati, an expert in development economics in Africa, and founder and director, Inter-Region Economic Network. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me this afternoon. But before we get into the meat of it, we'll take a short break here on NTV at 1, and we'll be back with that conversation.
The Pro-Critical Care Plan is a life insurance product offering financial protection to individuals when diagnosed with a critical or terminal illness like cancer. A one-off payment is payable to the customer if they are diagnosed for the first time with a critical or terminal illness. A critical ailment may come with financial strain. The client can use the payment to offset costs associated with medical treatment and care management, for example, chemotherapy following a cancer diagnosis. It's not about things going wrong. It's about planning for things right. Choose how you live. Kenyatta University will host over 2,500 student athletes for the 10th edition of the All Africa University Games from June 6th to 10th June at the main campus of Thika Highway. Athletes will compete in 17 disciplines and 5 demonstration sports. The winner of the soccer tournament will be Africa's representative to the FISU University World Cup 2023 in Xinjiang, China. Come and catch all the action at KU. Entrance is free.
Get the latest and credible news on the general elections. Subscribe to the Daily Nation Election News. Send the word election to 20688 and stay informed on coalitions, defections, resignations, election candidates, and many more. Daily Nation. The truth.
Africa seeks crowd investment into its energy sector as the continent pursues the ambitious New Deal on energy, which targets 100% access in urban areas and 95% in rural areas across the continent by 2030. Realization of this agenda demands leveraging grid-scale and off-grid solutions and related technological advances, whilst maintaining focus on the needs for sustainability. Kenya is a global leader in the pursuit for sustainable energy transition, with more than 90% of electricity consumption drawn from renewable sources. How can Africa de-risk the high capital investment into the energy sector and bring on board more players? How does the continent adopt a policy environment which catalyzes investment into the energy sector? The Sustainable Energy Conference, slated for 16th and 17th June 2022 at KenGen's Olkaria Geothermal Fields in Naivasha, seeks to place the spotlight on some of these issues and help chart Africa's path to sustainable energy transition. Tickets available on kenyabuzz.com. Sustainable Energy Conference. renewable energy for sustainable development.
The first winner of the Champions League is again the most recent winner of the Champions League. Which means Real Madrid is the champion of Europe for the 14th time. That is some achievement, and this is the Football Review.
Welcome back on this special coverage of Decision 2022, and we'll certainly be focusing on the issue of manifestos today. Remember, like I said, the Azimio One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga will be unveiling his manifesto, and we'll be taking a look at point by point on what that means, and of course the issue of implementation and the like. And in studio, just to reintroduce my guest, is Professor Fred Ogola, political strategist and academic director, Institute of Strategy and Competitiveness, as well as James Shikwati, expert in development economics in Africa, as well as founder and director, Inter-Region Economic Network. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll begin with Prof. Prof, you know, the issue of manifestos is one that we certainly cannot escape. And every election season, every election year, the political sides will definitely come up with very impressive manifestos. First things first, what should Kenyans at this point put their focus on when it comes to, you know, the manifestos that are being presented to them?
Thank you very much, Zainab, for having me at NTV. I think that when you are looking at what is a hallmark of a good manifesto, there are what is called manifestos, and that's what we call bunches of promises. So a manifesto must answer the question, why? Why are we having this manifesto? Where are we coming from? So that talks about the context of the Kenyan economy. You mentioned in the newsletter we have just been hit by COVID-19. Kenyans are coming from a bad economic environment. We have this challenge with the Russia, whatever it is. The economy is doing very badly. The cost of living is bad. People can't access health as they wish. So is manifesto addressing the key issues which answers the question, why? Why are we saying this 10-point agenda? Baba care, social protection, education, job creation, women and women empowerment, administrative continuity. Why are we? Is that manifesto addressing that question? The second thing is what? What are the issues in this campaign? The issues in campaign, for example, is to do with the issue with what is President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy? Can we have somebody entrusted with it? Should somebody take a different path from what Kibaki put in place, Uhuru has run, and take a different tangent? That's an important question, because that's why in Raila's manifesto they talk about the issue of administrative continuity. Raila was part of the coalition government, grand coalition government. Most of the things in Kibaki's manifesto, if you like, and the issue of the administration, he had a hand in it. The constitution was there. So the question is, what are the issues in this campaign? Cost of living is an issue here. Economic well-being of Kenyans is an issue. Health is an issue. The second thing, which is the most important, because most promises can have the why, can have the what, but you discover, if you look at the two manifestos between the two leading coalitions, which one answers this question, how? How will you do it? For example, Raila says, I'm going to give you 6,000. How will you finance that?
All right.
I'll give you Baba Care. How will he finance that? I'm going to ensure that I empower women and men. This empowerment is a big word, but exactly what is it? How will you do it? And to cap it all, what is the team sheet that Raila Amolo Odinga is fronting for us? The team sheet is, what is his team? What is Azimio's team? Look at him. The leading candidate followed by the second one. That is Martha Karua. Go to the other side, we have Ruto and we have Rigathi Gachagua. So if Rigathi Gachagua is the second best candidate in Kenya Kwanza, how poor or rich is Kenya Kwanza? If Raila Odinga is the first one, second by Martha Karua, then you look at all those from that coalition. You can mention the likes of Peter Kenneth, you can mention Sabina Chege, you can mention Peter Munya, you can mention Kaitu Murungi, you can mention all the big guns that are in Azimio, One Kenya Alliance. Look at the other side. What history are they known for? What track record can you know them for? So the execution of this manifesto is the answering why, answering what, answering how, and who will execute it.
So also just taking a look at the individuals within that particular
coalition. Yes, because if you look at a team sheet between Barcelona Football Club and Real Madrid, Messi is here, Ronaldo is there. Right. You can count the goals. They score in every goal.
Right.
But these other guys, where do they score? Do they score corruption goals or they score economic goals? Do they score goals against society or against society? So I'm looking at why, what, how, and who.
All right.
If you answer those questions here, and that's what we expect from the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, to outline these important questions. If they get it wrong, these 4 Ws, then we should know that we have a good manifesto.
Right. Why, what,
why,
what, who?
How, and
how. How and who,
yes.
in particular. James, your opinion from where you see it with regards to the manifestos that will be presented to Kenyans and how Kenyans should internalize them?
Yeah, I think I agree with the Professor in terms of the structure through which maybe you deliver a manifesto. But we've got a history where the manifestos rarely get acted upon. And again, probably the politician knows that the voter rarely reads the manifesto. And so I think it's sort of a balancing act. And if you look at the 10-point agenda that comes from Azimio, probably they know this. And that's why if you look at the language, it's really tailored to the voter language, you know. They are not interested to tell us how. They are not even interested to tell us in terms of how they'll galvanize Kenya's relations with other countries. You know, the bigger picture story is missing, and it looks quite deliberate that let's just go to the voter, tell the voter you'll get pesa mfukoni. That's a language they can understand. Baba Care, that's a language you can understand. And probably it comes from the history of 2017, where Jubilee had very good manifesto, infrastructure-wise, until we've reached a stage where people question, you know, the roads are there, but we don't have money in the pocket. So I think what Azimio has done is to go to the mind of the voter and look at the issues that concern the voter. But in my opinion, there are quite a number of points missing. For example, we've just seen a clip on security. And I thought they would also have a point of how do we secure your property, how do we secure your well-being, because to be productive, as I can see all the good points about production, if somebody is going to steal at night, what happens? Because a lot of productivity in Kenya is compromised because you fear that somebody will steal your crop, somebody will take away the car if it's parked outside. So I think it's a good attempt, but as I said earlier, I think political parties know that the voters rarely read the manifestos.
Right. And just a quick through on the Azimio 10-point agenda. Of course, point number 1 is the Inua Jamii Pesa Mfukoni that seeks to address the social economic issue of the common mwananchi. You have point number 2, Baba Care, and point number 3, Kazi kwa wote. Point 4, Uchumi kwa kina mama. Point number 5, hashtag inawezekana, and this is with regards to issues of governance and politics. Point number 6, wastage not a single child, waste not a single child. Point number 7, fukuza njaa. Number 8, maji kwa kila boma. Point number 9, one county, one product. Point number 10, administrative continuity. And of course, like James says, this has been engineered in order to fit into, you know, an understanding that a common mwananchi will be able to look at it and say, Baba Care. You know, that's such an easy word. But when you look at the content, the meat of really what would be entailed in an issue like that, addressing an issue of healthcare in this country, which has been a serious issue, would be quite interesting to see.
Yeah, Zainab, I told you that why I said without the 4, why, what, how, and who, we cannot understand this.
Right.
Like my brother James says that in 2017, 2013, Jubilee came out with a flamboyant manifesto.
Right.
Actually, I'll call it romanticized manifesto. It looks very romantic, but on the ground, what is it? So I've told you, who is Raila Amolo Odinga?
Right.
Who is Martha Karua? From the knowledge, when he said, I want constitutional reforms, in grand coalition government, not being president, they delivered it. And if you look at his track record, commitment and consistency, you can give him credit. Martha Karua. And I like what he did. I told you the team sheet. When she was unveiled at the grounds of KICC, he was not given DP without portfolio. She was given a DP with portfolio.
Right.
The current deputy president don't have portfolio. That's why they say it's just on top of a car. But he says that Martha Karua will be the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Right. Her work was to look at BBI, look at the reforms which are needed, and look for how to address corruption. Link that to 6,000. Where will the money come from? That's the how. Cost of corruption in this country is very high. And we lose money in that, so we'll address that man. The issue of Babacare, which we know is expensive. I think if you want to look again, the person we know about Raila Amolo Odinga, he was in India for more than 1 week. He was understanding the pharmaceutical sector, how it is being manufacturing medicine, which we import. Remember, we do medical tourism in India. He went to understand it. So he says that when we can do local manufacture, by working on the value chain of healthcare industry, we can actually deliver Babacare. So you can see the how, and I tell you the team sheet in this Azimio is more trustable, if you like. I'm not saying I'm taking sides. I'm just looking at the team sheet.
Right, right.
Because in God we trust, the rest bring data. With this team sheet, you see scores. What has Raila Odinga done that can put legacy? Look at the other side of Kenya Kwanza. Tell me one thing you know of the leader of Kenya Kwanza that he ever said, I'm passionate about this, and he delivered. Raila Odinga, on the other side, you can say what he did. Martha Karua, you can count what he did. So I'm saying, if you look at the team formation, we look at track record, because you cannot judge them based on the election day or after the election. We can judge them based on historical data. And history favors Azimio and their manifesto, I'm sorry to say that, as opposed to this one. Second, look at his age. Raila Odinga is running not as a young man. He's running when he has actually experienced. He's contested 4 times. Today I saw in the morning in Embu, when a young man, 24 years old, who has just graduated with software engineering, contesting for MCA of Embu County. Now, his manifesto may not be as good as Azimio, because he has not had a lot of reflection in government. But if you look at what made Kibaki successful, Kibaki contested several before winning. Meaning he had several manifestos, revised them, reworked them, redone them, and he was able to answer now the questions, the 4 questions. Now, when Kibaki took over, with the stroke of a pen, he knew where the silver bullet to solve Kenyan's issues were. And I'm hoping that the advantage we get from the experience of the leader of Azimio, One Kenya Lands, is the experience he's had. He's been in government, infrastructure, he has a record about it, and when you go with the stroke of pen, he knows where to press, and we should be fine.
But let's just circle back to the tenure of the former late President Mwai Kibaki. Remember, in the run-up to the 2002 election, the campaign agenda was how to deal with corruption at that particular point. Would you perhaps say that most of these leaders and politicians are quite far from the realities on the ground? It is within that tenure of Mwai Kibaki that we saw really big corruption scandals. We saw the Anglo-leasing scandal, among many others. So would you say, even as these leaders are bringing up their agendas and manifestos and presenting them to Kenyans, they really are a bit far from understanding the reality on the ground? James?
I would say that there's political leadership which is offering the vision, and that's what I think these manifestos are about, and the 10-point agenda is about. And then there are the technocrats, and I think that's where the saying of the rubber hitting the highway is. And
because most of these, you find that manifestos are drafted by technocrats.
Yeah, you can promise, for example, 6,000 shillings per the 2 million
household.
Yeah. But then how to deliver that? It's not just the politician's job. They have to get now another caliber of people will do the delivery.
Right.
And we've seen this fund for the youth. We've seen the kind of corruption stories that have been discussed in the press. So I think in terms of these points, my view is that this is a vision of a leader saying this is what I aspire to deliver to your area or to my voters. But we know there's a civil service. Is it going to be retrained to align to this vision? Because if the civil service does not necessarily buy into this talk, the normal culture of my 10% will come in, meaning for somebody to receive that 6,000, there's going to be somebody who holds back the money until he gets his cut. So I think it's a balancing act that I think Raila Odinga has to do to make sure that whatever he promises, he has also to have a sitting with the crew that has to do the delivery. So I think looking at it in terms of where it's going, I think this just offers hope. Because we are in a scenario of hopelessness. We've just come out of COVID-19. A lot of businesses are shuttered. Now there's a war in Europe, which is also impacting negatively to our economies. We've just seen some factory closing down at the coast. So the idea of things are becoming helpless, I think is pervading through everybody's mind. And therefore, I think this is an agenda to simply say, I offer hope. So going back to your point on Kibaki, my analysis of what happened with the Kibaki system is that, we had been in some sort of suffocation for 24 years. And he created some kind of fresh air, opening the window and things, people feel fresh breath. And I think that's what ignited, catalyzed people to move out and start investing and feel the freedom. I think when Jubilee came into power, they wanted to do everything themselves. So they again started suffocating enterprises because now Jubilee had this manifesto, they have to do everything. I hope Raila will not fall in that trap, because if he does, then all the things he's promising can push out, let's say, the private sector. If you look at an example of, let's say, Babacare, very important to make sure that there's insurance for everybody. But I'm sure the private insurance health providers are going to push back and say, you know what, this is our space. So there has to be some kind of a middle ground where some innovation can come up that can enable those who are private players to innovate, to offer similar facilities cheaply, while the government probably also does it. Otherwise, if the government decides to dominate, I think it's going to be an interesting space to see, because as Professor pointed out, where will the money come from? These 10 points do not tell us how Raila is going to generate billions, so as to then distribute the billions.
And we'll certainly be coming back to interrogate that issue of financing these projects, and of course it will be very interesting to see and hear their highlights on that issue. Well, let's take a very short break here on Decision 2022. We'll be back with more. Stay with us.
Mad Dog Spot Corrector. The power of vitamin C. Bye-bye dog spots.
Mbio za mwaka huu za Mata zitafanyika tarehe 11 Juni mwaka 2022. Wakati huo huko Nairobi, Mombasa, Machakos, Kakamega, Kisumu, Meru, Nakuru, Eldoret, Bomet, Kericho na pia Nyeri. Ili kushiriki, nunua tishati kwa shilingi 1000 katika hospitali ya Mata, maduka ya Naivas, Galitos au Pizza Inn yaliyo karibu nawe. Unaweza pia kutuma mchango wako kwenye nambari yetu ya malipo ya M-Pesa 526300. Kisha kwenye akaunti andika jina lako au jina la shirika lako.
Over the years, Amicus Savings and Credits has been a true friend, and we have built a long-lasting relationship based on trust and honesty. All that I have achieved, my business, my assets, I can attribute them all to Amica Savings and Credit. I'm happy to see my children and grandchildren following my footsteps by joining Amica Savings and Credit. For that reason, I will always be Amican for life.
Join Amica today and enjoy attractive returns on your investments, affordable loans, convenient banking, and tailor-made financial solutions. Amica Savings and Credit. Plan smarter, live better.
And this man is Palomita's real father. And Nancy has been blatantly lying to us this entire time as if we're all idiots.
What happened?
That lady, Estrella, doesn't want to understand the easy way. It'll have to be the hard way.
I hope you watch your words very carefully.
You don't have to warn me about anything. I'm a grown-up. I know what I'm doing.
Well, I hope so. Because the truth isn't worth putting yourself at risk.
Get peace of mind and protect the ones you love with the power of Dettol Bar Soap. It cleans and protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So no matter what type of mum you are, trust Dettol.
Africa seeks crowd investment into its energy sector as the continent pursues the ambitious New Deal on energy, which targets 100% access in urban areas and 95% in rural areas across the continent by 2030. Realization of this agenda demands leveraging grid-scale and off-grid solutions and related technological advances, whilst maintaining focus on the needs for sustainability. Kenya is a global leader in the pursuit for sustainable energy transition, with more than 90% of electricity consumption drawn from renewable sources. How can Africa de-risk the high capital investment into the energy sector and bring on board more players? How does the continent adopt a policy environment which catalyzes investment into the energy sector? The Sustainable Energy Conference, slated for 16th and 17th June 2022 at KenGen's Olkaria Geothermal Fields in Naivasha, seeks to place the spotlight on some of these issues and help chart Africa's path to sustainable energy transition. Tickets available on kenyabuzz.com. Sustainable Energy Conference. Renewable energy for sustainable development.
All right, welcome back to our special coverage, which we'll be focusing today is on the Azimio One Kenya Coalition manifesto, expected to be unveiled later on today in the afternoon. And before we continue with our conversation, I'd like us to head to Mombasa County, where our Kevin Mutai is on standby. Kevin, good afternoon. What are some of the expectations from the residents of Mombasa with regards to this event today?
Good afternoon to you, Zainab. It's good to hear from you indeed. The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party manifesto launch is expected to set stage for the August 9th election, with Odinga expecting to use his 10-point agenda to convince the Kenyan electorate on how his administration will address various issues ailing different sectors in the country, among them health, the economy, as well as taking care of the vulnerable in the society, among others that Odinga is expected to talk about today. But let's just quickly get to listen from the locals of the port city of Mombasa on their thoughts and expectations of today's manifesto launch. Kwanza kabisa, anza kwa majina, waitwa nani, alafu tueleze matarajio yako kutokana na uzinduzi wa manifesto ya Azimio.
Okay, kwa majina naitwa David ama Nyachai Junior. My expectation ni kutoka kwa mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, Azimio la Umoja. One, ni ku minimize corruption ambayo imetusumbua sana kwa muda mrefu. Ya pili ni ku empower youths, manake kuna youths wengi ambao wana kazi, ile kazi mtaani ambao walileta. Nafikiria hii serikali ambayo itakayokuja itaimboss na watu wapate kazi. 3, tunajua kuna baba care, ambayo inakuja for social security ambayo itaembawa watu ambao ni wamama, maybe vijana ambao hawana kazi. Ya ine kuna national housing kama slums, ku-upgrade slums, kuweka zile nyumba ambazo zinakuwa affordable kidogo ambao ni nzuri kutengeneza city. Ya tano, we want serikali ambayo itakuwa na service delivery kwa wananchi, kwa sababu we had been missing a lot of service delivery kwa serikali ya Jubilee for a long time, na it is our time now Mheshimiwa Raila kusaidia wananchi, manake yeye ndio tunajua, yeye ndio kililio cha Wakenya wengi, kwa sababu vile wameingia yeye na mama, I think mama na baba, serikali imekuwa imekamilika. Yeah.
Ni mambo kama yepi ambayo unamtarajia Raila Odinga kuangazia katika uzinduzi wake wa manifesto hii leo?
Kwanza kabisa, kwa majina naitwa Kibet Mikachumba kutoka maeneo ya Mombasa. Kwanza kabisa, kulingana na vile baba tunavyotarajia baba kuzindua manifesto yake, kuna mambo manne makuu ambayo na imani kwamba baba atazingatia. Kwanza ni ufisadi. Tunajua baba ako katika mstari wa mbele katika kupigana na mambo za ufisadi. Ya pili ambayo najua baba ako na uwezo kufanya, miaka nenda miaka rudi amekuwa akituambia kuhusu ajenda zake 3, kama vile kupigana na umaskini, kupigana na magonjwa na kupigana na ujinga, ambayo tunajua kwamba ikiwa baba anaweza kutuhakikisha kwamba atapigana na hiyo, ambayo mimi katika roho yangu najua hanaweza, basi Wakenya watakuwa na furaha na tutamkumbuka milele. Asante sana.
Asante. Upande mwingine, songea hapa karibu hapa mbele kidogo. Hebu tueleze majina, waitwa nani?
Kwa majina naitwa Ruben Mutua Mwanzia.
Leo Odinga atazindua manifesto yake akizingatia baadhi ya masuala ya kuweza mbali na kuinua uchumi, vile vile kuangazia yale matatizo ambayo yanakumba Wakenya. Je, pengine watarajia kusikia nini kutoka kwake Odinga leo?
Unajua mheshimiwa, kulingana na vile amekuwa akizunguka, kuna vitu amekuwa akitaja na nafikiri zinaweza kuwa katika manifesto yake. Nimesikia akisema kuna kitu kinaitwa baba care, ambapo mimi kama mwananchi nashangaa anatuletea baba care, ambapo tuko na universal health care, hatujaona mwisho wake, na anatuambia atatuletea baba care. Amesema atakuwa na elimu ya bure, na Kibaki alituletea elimu ya bure, lakini sijui yake itakuwa vipi, kwa sababu tunangojea tuone. Lakini kwa wale wanasema mambo ya corruption, mheshimiwa, they are misleading Kenyans, kwa sababu corruption kupigana nayo ni ngumu sana. Martha Karua akiingia katika Azimio, kuna sauti alisikika katika Radio Maisha akisema kwamba haya makundi mawili hakuna mmoja mzuri, wote ni waizi, ni wakora, na baadaye Martha Karua kaingia hapo. Sasa mtu akiniambia Raila atapambana na upinzani, aanze kwanza apigane na wale wanamzunguka hapo, maana Muradhi juzi alisema kuna wale wanamzunguka. Kwa hiyo manifesto ya Raila ni hatano, mimi si expect chochote, japokuwa ni kudanganya wa Kenya.
Well, of course, we are expecting to still hear from the locals here, and indeed they have a lot to say on their expectations regarding today's manifesto launch, and definitely, Zainab, I hope I will be back later to engage more residents of Mombasa on their thoughts about today's event happening in Nairobi. Back to you, Zainab.
All right. Views there from residents of Mombasa, some also dissenting, but of course also we've had issues of corruption featuring widely on what they expect, you know, the Azimio candidate to address in his manifesto. So let's just interrogate a little bit deeply into one of the issues which has, you know, been covered widely, which is the 6,000 shillings per month to about 2 million vulnerable households. So the issue of financing is what we're coming into. Can the government of, you know, Raila Odinga, if potentially comes into power, given the prevailing financial constraints that we're facing as a country, be able to realize this, Prof?
Yeah, I remember there's a time when I was listening to Raila Odinga live, and when he was asked how he's going to finance this thing, I found him looking very happy when he laughed and said, I know where the money is. I'm sure you must have seen this clip somewhere. Yes, I know where the money is. I know that body language sent to me that he knows what he's doing. And I told you earlier, this guy has got a deep reflection about this economy. He's seen it from the trenches to where it is now. And without talking a lot, as economists we believe in God, we trust the rest bring data. 6,000 to 2 million families is how much? James, that's how much?
6,000, it's like 6 billion.
6 billion shillings.
6 billion, yeah.
How much were being lost in corruption? How much do we lose in corruption every day? How much went to Kimaror those dams that were has been going on. So he says he knows where the money is, and he was smiling. That's where corruption is. At the same time, don't look at the 6,000 in isolation. Look at the 10-point agenda in one unit. For example, when someone is offering healthcare, that means that when 6,000 reaches your pocket, you're better off than if there's no healthcare and someone gives you what? 6,000. So the impact is very big. Secondly, if you look at one product, one county, one product, those things will raise what's called national revenue. And if you look at the economic chapter of this thing, you know, you'll be given a short manifesto, a bridge version. But the real manifesto is a long document with the hows well explained. Devolution. Raila has believed in devolution ever since, and you can see that working very well in his manifesto, which means consistency. We believe in the person. Now, if you look at the revenue we shall collect when you do those projects, affordable healthcare, production or manufacturing companies, pharmaceuticals here, the way India is doing, how much will that bring national revenue enough to be able to raise, to deal with the issue of paying for this cost? So financing, I'm very sure, because if you look at Kibaki, collected 100 times the revenue more used to collect, 100 times. Did the economy grow by 100 times? No.
But Prof, look at it this way. Even also part of his agenda he's talking about on the micro and small businesses is the 1.7-year tax holiday. Yes. That he will be giving to this small and medium-sized. But then,
Zainab, look here. Do you know why Africa is suffering economically? You are an expert in economic development. When you want to borrow money in the US or Europe, what you normally do, tell them, I will tax Kenyans more, so give me that loan, I'll pay them back. I'll pay back by taxing. So the more taxes you raise, the more revenue you actually collect, because there's no foreign direct investment coming to the country. Nobody wants to bring an investment in the country because we are overtaxed. Nobody wants to produce because they are going to be overtaxed. So we have seen that when you lower taxation, sometimes you collect more. In fact, I can give you, even with numbers, why countries where taxes are lower, where there are more investment. For example, it's more attractive to invest in Singapore than to invest in UK. Why? Because of the tax policy, which is stable. But look, so a stable tax policy can raise money. And then also something which I was telling you have to look at very, very carefully is that the whole manifesto, women and men empowerment, what are they being empowered to do? To become business people. How are you empowering them? Through those tax incentives. When they produce, they'll produce the national revenue that is being used as taxes, that can generate taxes to be able to do these activities we are talking about. And then thirdly, the cost of living has to be brought down by infrastructure. For example, the cost of doing business. Now, expressway, you can drive to expressway quickly and move. Infrastructure will do that. So if you look at the whole scenario, all that 10-point agenda is to ensure that everything else will bring the cost of living down, cost of transport will go down, travel time between here to Naivasha to Mombasa will go down. But all those are costs.
I still have questions. I still have questions on on that tax holiday. James, maybe you can, you know, from your economic background.
You know, first I will try to look at the criteria for that 6,000. It says for the most needy and vulnerable.
Right.
Then it goes on to say, this is not a handout, but an investment. So if we listen to the gentleman from Mombasa who was talking about Kibaki promised free education, where is it, and stuff like that, I think maybe the detail will be in the delivery, because I foresee a scenario where the Raila administration then will create some kind of criteria. You are needy, but you need to showcase that if you receive these funds, you will be using them to move to some step. But of course now it's campaign time, so you cannot give those details. Otherwise, I would agree with that gentleman from Mombasa that just promising free handout is not going to be the best approach to dealing with people.
But Zainab, if I can interrupt James a little bit. In the US, there's what you call unemployment benefit. There's a criteria to be paid, even during COVID. People who are given money for having unemployment.
It's not a problem.
And the criteria is to bring consumption.
I don't think we can compare the US because our productivity levels are not the same. US is highly industrialized, and therefore they have a base from which they can tap all the capital.
But what I'm trying to say, if people can consume, Do you know what's happening here is that people are below the budget line.
If we take that line, then they'll be consuming products imported.
So these are completely two different policy issues.
So because then we empower you to then consume stuff imported from somewhere else.
And that's why I said you can't look at the economic policy of Raila in isolation. As we are doing the 6,000, we are empowering youth and women to become producers. Pharmaceuticals will be here.
Professor, my point is this.
James,
that
just finish your point.
It's a good idea, yes. But without a criteria, then it can tempt many people to want to be in the needy level.
Right.
So maybe I've been producing some maize, but now 6,000. It takes a lot of effort to produce the maize. Why can't I become needy so that then I can qualify?
This bracket.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying that if I combine the idea that needy, vulnerable, I like the point where then it goes further to say it's not a handout.
Yes.
So if it's not a handout, then I think what Mwananchi should expect is that there's going to be a criteria where, yes, you're needy, but you need to tell us, if we give you the 6,000, what are you going to do? Because if you say consuming, then everybody would rather go down
James,
to
let me
get
tell
free
you
6,000.
When Kibaki became president, we came out with a framework that was about Vision 2030 called EMDA. These are called executive orders that are given by the president. So when Raila becomes president, if he becomes, he will go to State House and write an executive order. There will be a ministerial policy to look for how to execute this executive order. Then it will be a department in a ministry which is involved to come up with an execution framework. Then there will be an implementation agency that will do that. For example, if Uhuru Kenyatta goes and says now that we will have free secondary education, that is under Ministry of what? Education. There is education department under secondary education department that will come with the ministerial policy that will now pick the department how to execute that. Then the executing arm will be either one of the arms under secondary education to do so.
Professor,
let me tell you, government...
I don't think we are disagreeing.
Right.
Yes. My point is just simple.
Yes.
The devil is in the details.
To avoid incentivizing people who would ordinarily be not needy to start becoming needy because there's free 6,000.
Right.
You see, and that's why I'm saying a criteria has to be created.
But
otherwise, the easy money will make even somebody who has a job to say, I'd rather just sleep and earn 6,000.
Actually, it happened in the US where the money for COVID, which was being used as a relief for those who lost employment, was higher than some people's income.
Right.
So people were finding difficulty to come back to work when the economy rebounds.
So that's
and that is a very important point. That's why the criteria has to be clear on who qualifies for this kind of relief.
And you know, the devil is certainly in the details and how they will be able to address intricately the details.
But in terms of where the money comes from, actually the current president said we lose 2 billion per day.
Per day, yes.
Per day. So if you multiply it, then it
I'm happy you agree with me on that.
No, but we still have to know where that money went to. But because we just have just probably about 2 minutes, so let's just quickly also take a look at the second issue, which is, you know, Baba Care. Again, one of the most pronounced agendas during the campaign period and trail by Azimio. And also a key issue that I think you've both seen the residents of Mombasa talking about. He says about scaling up of the universal healthcare pilot programs across the country and widening. Okay, that's it. So the issue here then comes to, you know, the NHIF, which is already in place, right? So NHIF is first of all underfunded, and this is, you know, a huge significant issue in the realization of the universal health coverage in the country. So then you look at Azimio and you want to ask, how will they be able to realize this agenda?
If you look at NHIF, 70% of the premium being paid goes into operations like paying salaries, rent, and the rest. And Raila Odinga's administration, let's say the team, the economic team, which will be unveiled to you maybe after this manifesto, have looked at how can you lower the amount of money that goes to operation, because I'm sure James can agree. If the 70% of premiums are going into paying salaries, paying operation cost, 30% only goes into healthcare, then there's a challenge. So how will you be able to deal with that to ensure that if the system is efficient enough to ensure that actually the money is given, like you said, the 6,000, who will ensure that that Wanjiku somewhere, Onyango somewhere gets the 6,000 and it is seamless. That's where execution comes in, because strategy without execution, that talking about how becomes a very important question for all Kenyans to assess. And most likely, because we are talking about decision 2022,
right.
I want to tell you, even if you don't believe in Raila Odinga's manifesto, ask yourself, whom can you trust with anything they promise? Because this is you are making a decision. You cannot make a decision between me and Raila Odinga. I'm not contesting.
But
the person contesting is Ruto versus Raila. With their manifesto, whom can you trust with? Why, what, how, and who?
All right, Prof.
That's the most important.
Maybe also just quickly, James, as you wind up.
In my view, I think the Baba Care can easily ride on the infrastructure of the current wave. Remember, during COVID, the government really built quite a number of hospitals across counties to try and give them the capability to address the COVID challenge. So I think the Baba Care can ride on that infrastructure if they can equip the existing hospitals, then make it affordable. I think they already have a possibility as far as that is concerned.
All right. Thank you. James Shikwati, expert in development economics in Africa, and also founder and director, Interregion Economic Network, as well as Professor Fred Ogola, political strategist and director, Institute of Strategy and Competitiveness. Thank you so much, gentlemen.